what's really, I would think, the real goal of the district should be to do something like this. We got to get back up here. We can't spend more than we're going to receive. Just basically what the contingency in that letter is. But you got to keep that number a little bit bigger than that number, so eventually you get back up there. The nice thing about this graph is this is how long it took you to get here. We've been down here, and we really only started addressing it now. So we need a little time, but we're going to get back. Okay? Of course. This is the history of enrollments, and you've seen these things before. These are all off the state aid printouts, and I would like to suggest that that number, which is the fall count 2 years ago, and that number, almost the same number, that number, that number, and that number are exactly the same numbers. Okay, those are the general ed enrollments in February. Top number is the February count. The first Wednesday in February. And the fourth Friday count now is the first Friday in October count. I still got it labeled September, because it was September way up to about here. But that number, you know, we're right smack dab in we got the same enrollment. This one, this is the last February, is down a little bit. This is the only projected number. And that number is that number plus 50 students. And to be very honest, just so you didn't quote me saying this, but we just said, we're going to get some of those kids. There are 200 of them at Victory. They're all low-run kids, and we hope we're going to get all 200 of them. We budgeted for 50 in this revenue budget. That's where we got the number, and that, of course, because schools are funded on a per-student basis, how many kids you have is kind of important. This is the history of our foundation grants. I didn't even update this one because we got the same foundation grant next year, this new budget year as we had last year. I've shown you this and complained about this one before, but I think this is a brilliant, absolutely brilliant display of finance analysis. These are the actual dollars of the foundation grant in this district. If you reduce them by the consumer price index for inflation, you get a different read. It's about as flat as it can be. Flat, 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 up a little bit, down a little bit, down, 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 down. Oops, that's up again, a little bit. Down, down, down. You compare the current year's adjusted buying power of the foundation grant that we're getting this year. You go way back to the year before Proposal A was passed and fixed all of the funding problems for Michigan public education. That's what we got the first year of Proposal A. That's what we got the last year of Bursley, the year before Proposal A. In buying power, that's what we're getting now. That's almost $3,200. Or $3,600 is $400. 400, 3,200s is 1/8. That's about 16% less in buying power.
Almost sounds like the state was on do math.
Anyway, another neat little graph. These are the expenditure assumptions. Again, these are one of the clickers on that big Excel spreadsheet. I'll give these to you if you want them. I'll print them for you. And they are on the internet. The assumptions, kind of a quick narrative explanation of what's in the budget, what's different about this year's budget than last year's number. We had 10 teachers retired, obviously all senior teachers. In addition to the difference in salary between the two that we replaced and the people who retired, this district has some really pretty generous retirement stipends that are in the current year budget that aren't going to be replicated next year because we're not going to have 10 people, certainly not these same people, retire again. So we have a bunch of people retire, virtually the same number of kids, while actually expecting a few more kids, and we're going to have fewer teachers. So that's one of the ways we got from the 21 million that we spent this year to 19 million. We're going to share Dr. Thomas with Gibson Schools. One of the people in our office is retiring. We're not replacing her. We're kind of struggling. We're going to have to do something different. I got a little bit of extra money in for some payroll help, but I'm not sure. I think I had quite a amount. process of moving much of our payroll function to the combined ISD service. We talked about that. That seems to be working, but it's taking us more time to implement than we thought. That's going to work. This is the tentative agreement that we had with our custodial folks. That's already in the budget. That's out of the ASME contract. We don't have bids, but I got a little bit less money to contract with the securities firm. That's one that the buildings we talked about. We've talked about moving the Ypsilanti there's 60-some buses here. Then we're going to charge them rent. That's in that revenue center budget. We are establishing a rule in negotiations that the district is going to restrict its provision of fringe benefits to people who do not work. We provide benefits only for people who work a traditional 40-hour week. We replaced a couple of boilers, one in each of your used elementary schools last year. We're not going to have to do that again this next year, or for another 30 years, 39 years. This is just a note that you do have long-term contracts with your teachers and your administrators. These are the folks that stepped up a couple of years ago. We were the first ones in the area who actually had a voluntary renegotiation of terms. We had some concessions. This is sent to us by the state. This is just to go through where we had some big money that we're not going to see again. We were involved in a lawsuit. Our insurance company paid us $80,000 to settle the suit. We in turn paid it through our payroll to the complainant. And so it was a wash, but it artificially increases both our revenue and our expenses, so we're not going to have either of that. And this is really the same thing. We had one of our big taxpayers went to the tax tribunal and got a reduction in taxes, but it was a 3-year, 4-year, there was a history to it. And so because there's an implication in the state aid, we got some money back from the state, so we had to receipt it, but we also had to pay the money back to the county, so they could refund it to the taxpayer. So again, we had both our revenues and our expenses increase, but really kind of artificially because it's the same amount. Revenues, we got a real estate deal cooking. That's on your agenda. I hope we're going to close tonight. It's in this year's, in the current year, 2011-12 budget. I'd like to sell that property again every year, but probably won't be able to do that. We got some money. We were talking about the Medicaid money. That's the Medicaid money for that software that we were talking about. We got that this year. We're not going to get it again next year. The Act 18 money is getting the tax. That's the ISD collected money for special education. The property values are going down a little bit in Washington County, so the tax isn't generating as much. But the ISD programs are costing more, so the amount that's left over for the local districts is declining. And that reduction is reflected in your revenue budget. The recovery, that's the American Recovery Act money. That's all gone. Some of it is still in this year's budget. None of it, there's no money left in next year's budget. And then these are the assumptions of what the state aid, and of course, just in the nick of time, the governor passed the time of the state aid bill just the day before we have. But when we put this together, the budget together, we had to assume what it was going to be, and that's pretty much what it's signed. So those are the budget, the assumptions in budget. I was going to read this to everybody, but the superintendent says, click to this is in your in the board packet. The first says that the boards just have to formally give people, administrators, permission to spend money, limit what they can spend. We have a general fund, revenue. Revenue is, there's 19 million in revenue. There's 19 million in expenditures. We have foods and